Hi Algebra! Welcome back! I hope you had a great spring break. Before break, we had been learning all about factoring, and factoring means to write something as a product, which means tell me what times what gives you this. But we don't have easy things like what times what is 20. We have funky looking trinomials and binomials and all of those polynomials. So what we're doing is, first thing we always look for is there a GCF? And so no matter what, the first thing we look for is the GCF. Now, I am going to just continue the notes from our last class. Before the break, we learned how to factor these trinomials where a was bigger than 1. So we've learned the GCF, we've learned grouping, we've learned just your basic trinomial, which was something like this, x squared minus 2x minus 15. And so we factored that into x plus 3. So I'm up here at the top if you're unsure where I'm at. I'm up here. Right here. So x squared minus 2x minus 15 equals x plus 3, x minus 5, where we looked at what times what gives us negative 15 and added together gives us negative 2. So we're looking at these right here, and I make my little chart. Hopefully this is familiar. And we find the numbers that multiply together to give us negative 15, and then we take those two numbers and we see if they also can add together to give us negative 2. So we get positive 3 and negative 5, and they just go in here. Alright, so we did that. You took a quiz on that. Then we got to problems where they started with not just 1x squared like this one, or 1a squared or 1b squared, but they start with a number. And so the first thing you always hope for is that it's a GCF. In this case, it wasn't. And so this is where we followed these steps of, which you can see I have written in here, that we will, multiply a to c, and then we now start with, so like in this example, the second example, we had 4 times 3, and that gives us 12. And it's a positive 12 because they're both positive numbers. So it's what times what is positive 12 and added together is positive 7. So we went through this example, and then once you find those numbers, you put them into place, but you have to divide them by a. So that's the thing that we typically will forget. So we went through these examples. You are more than welcome to review through those, but I'm going to start with some new ones that we haven't done yet. Alright, so we've got what times what is, let's first look for a GCF. So is there a number that goes into all of these numbers? 6, 26, and 20. 2, right? 2 would go into all of them. So I'm going to divide them all by 2, and I have to write the GCF out in front. So I got 2. And then this would be 3v squared minus 13v plus 10. All right, now I want to see if I can keep factoring this in this part right here. So I've got the GCF 2. I noticed that my a, so remember, like if you have 3v squared minus 13v plus 10, a is that, b is that, and c is your last number. So I noticed that my a is bigger than 1. It's 3. So this is where I have to do a times c because I've already taken the GCF out. So I have to do 3 times 10, and I get 30. So I'm going to ask what times what is 30, and added together is negative 13. Well, that's got to be, let's see, 2 options, I think. Let's see, 1 times 30, no. 2 times 15, and 3 times 10. Now 2 and 15 would give me 13 if I was subtracting, and 3 and 10 would give me 13 if I was adding two negatives together. So we have to pay attention to signs. So if I need them to add together to be negative, either the bigger one's negative or they're both negative. But when I multiply them, I get a positive. So that means that they both have to be the same sign. So it has to be -3 and -10. Because if it was 2 and -15, when you multiply that, you would get -30, which is supposed to be positive. So I have 2, I've got v minus 3, and v minus 10. Now, if I was to check myself, I could FOIL this out, but I would not get what I started with because in my first place I've got v and v. That's not okay because that just gives you v squared, but I have 3v squared. So this is where we say, oh yeah, there was that other thing. I have to divide by a, which in this case was 3. A equaled 3. So I have to divide those numbers. I'll do that in a different color. I have to divide these by a, which is 3. So I have my 2, doesn't go anywhere. This divides evenly, it's 1, so it's v minus 1. And this doesn't divide, doesn't reduce, so that comes up in front of here, so we have 3v minus 10. And here's your final answer. Now you can check it, you can check yourself if you want by foiling, and you will see that you will get the original problem that we started with. But this factors into that. Alright, so before we saw problems where we would have multiple letters, and that can happen in these problems as well. So here I've got 4x squared and a y squared. So one thing that you can do is say, okay, well, I've got a is bigger than 1, so I can do, there's no GCF, so check for GCF, there isn't one. So 2, I have to do a times c. And you're just doing the coefficients, right? So it's just 4 times 1, and that's 4. So I'm going to say, what times what is 4 and added together is 5? What times what is 4 and added together is 5? It has to be 1 times 4, because that would, 2 times 2 doesn't give you that. So it has to be 1 and 4, 1 and positive 4. Alright, so I've got x plus 1, y, and x plus 4y. I almost forgot those. And you have to have those y's there because otherwise you're not going to get y squared when you multiply. And then you have to divide those numbers by 4, by a. So going back, so step 3, divide by a. So let's see, 4 does not go into this, so it would be 4x plus y, or 1y. And then the 4 divided by 4 is just 1, so I get x plus y. And you could FOIL that, you could multiply that out to see if you get your correct answer, what you started with. But you will, in fact, I'll just do it with you. So 4x squared, if we were checking. FOIL, so first, outside, inside, last, and then you can add those middle two together because they're like terms. That's a 1, so it's 5xy plus y squared. And that's how you get the y squared at the end, and then the xy in the middle, because you've got 1 of each in there. Oops, I always do that. Alright, so let's try another example. We've got two letters, no big deal, not going to fret. Number 1, look for a GCF. 3, 5, and 2. Nope, nothing. Step 2, multiply a to c. So that's 3 times 2, so that gives us 6. So we're going to say what times what is 6, and added together is 5. 1 times 6, 2 times 3. Now, judging by the signs, I could get 5 with 1 and 6 if one of them was negative, like the 1, but that wouldn't give me a positive 6 if I multiplied them. So I've got to use 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3 would give you 5. So I've got a plus 2 and a plus 3. Oh, what did I forget? I forgot my b, so I gotta add that in there. B. And then divide, step 3, divide by a. So that's 3 and 3. So this first one, 3 does not go into 2, so it's 3a plus 2b. And then this goes in once, so it's a plus b. And that is your final answer. And you can, of course, check it if you would like. Okay, so now we've got these two problems. I want you to try them, and then once you try them, you're going to come back to the video, or to Zoom, sorry, and we're going to check your answers. So I'm going to work these out, and then we will check our answers together on these. Actually, just changed my mind. So you're going to pause the video and do them, and then check your answer, and I'll give you different ones to do when you come back to Zoom. But I want you to try these on your own. So pause the video and see if you can do them. All right, so I'm going to factor these. I see that I've got 2 letters. No big deal. Step 1, is there a GCF? No. Step 2, multiply A to C. So I get 6 times 2, which is 12. And I say what times what is 12, and added together is 7. That's 3 and 4. Right, 2 and 6 wouldn't give us that, and 1 and 12 wouldn't either. So I get u plus 3v and u plus 4v, because those are the numbers that I decided I needed to use. And then step 3, divide by a. So a is 6 and 6. So let's see, this reduces to 1 over 2. So it'll be 2u plus v, and this reduces to 2 over 3. So it'll be 3u plus 2v, because that goes up there. So that would be your final answer. And of course, you can check it by foiling. 2u times 3u is 6u squared. So we're off to a good start. 2u times 2v is 4uv, and v times 3u is plus 3uv. That would give you 7uv in the middle, and then v times 2v is 2v squared. So that is your correct answer. But you can always check. You never have to know, you never have to wonder if you were right. All right, next one. I have the steps written at the top, so I'm just going to use those. Is there a GCF? Almost. I mean, 2 goes into the first one and the last one, but doesn't go into 25, so no. Now, step 2, multiply A to C. So I'm going to say, what times what is 6 times 4? 24. And added together is negative 25. 1 times 24. I think that's it, maybe. They're both negative. Negative 1 and negative 24 will give you negative 25. And I would give you a positive if you multiply them together, because your other options are 2 and 12. Nah. And 3 times 8 and 4 times 6. So it has to be that. So we do u minus 1v and u minus 24v. And step 3, divide by a, just the number, so 4. So let's see, 4 doesn't go into 1, so this becomes 4u minus v, and this becomes, that goes in 6 times, right? So u minus 6v. And that is your final answer. All right, now here we have, we're almost done. 2 variables and a GCF? Seriously? Yeah, it can all happen at one time. Let's take a look. Number 1, is there a GCF? Now, see how I've been writing it every time? I am not going to do that. Like, when you ask me, I'm going to say, you have to know, what's the first thing we always look for? What's the first thing we always look for? You got to ask yourself if you get stuck. What's the first thing I always look for? Anytime you have this problem, you're going to ask yourself, what's the first thing I look for? GCF. All right, so, no number. 12 and 4 and 1. What about Q's? Yep, they all have Q's, and they all have K's. Okay, so I can take a max of 1K out, and I can take a max of 4 Q's, if you remember our lesson on GCFs. So what am I left with? 12K squared, no Q's, minus 4K Q, minus Q squared. Beautiful. Step 2, multiply A to C. So KQ to the 4th. So I have 12 times negative 1. So this will be 12 times negative 1. So that's negative 12. It's important that it's negative, or that we know it's negative if it is. Plus, what added together to give us negative 4? So 1 times 12, no. 2 times 6, what if it was 2 and negative 6? So would that work sign-wise? Positive times a negative, yep, gives us a negative, and then negative times 2 minus 6 would be negative 4, so that would work. Just to check, yeah, that's it. Okay, so I've got K plus 2, Q, oops, almost forgot that, and K minus 4Q. And then step 3 is I have to divide by A. So A was 12. Okay, Q to the 4th times, let's see, this becomes 1 and 6. So 6K plus 1Q. And that becomes 1 and 3. So 3K minus Q, 1Q. Ta-da! Can you check it? Yes, you can. All right, last problem. What do you do first? Everybody? Find the GCF. Right, okay, so no numbers. But they all have an N, and they all have an M. Yeah, just one. Okay, so I'm left with 5M squared plus 9mn plus 4n squared. And m, bring it down. Number 2, multiply a to c. So we do 5 times 4 is 20. What times what is 20? And added together is positive 9. It's going to be 4 and 5, right? So, yeah, 4 plus 5. Okay, so we get m plus 4n and m plus 5n. Step 3, divide those by a, so 5. So nm, 5m plus 4n, so it doesn't reduce or anything, and then m plus n. And you have just practiced factoring trinomials that are greater than 1 and had a GCF. These are seriously the hardest ones you will have to do. Good job.